morning. It is time for us to start your Tuesday. And to help me do this morning, none other than the great Jack Motlanthe, wearing his Msaga, Make South Africa Great Again hat.
You best believe
You love that thing, huh?
I love it. It
seems you got a lot of attention for it last week.
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Have people disliked it or liked it?
No,
this is the question.
They've loved it. So what happened was, before I got the cap,
Mm-hmm.
I had, I think, a little over 800 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
After I got the cap,
Right.
I'm above 1,000 views.
Oh, just from that. You reckon it's the hat?
It has to be.
Wow.
Like, I haven't changed anything in my life significantly up until I got this cap.
Huh.
Right?
Okay.
So I give it up to the cap.
So do we say cap, hat? Do we say kips? What do we say? Because in South Africa, we call it lots of things. I grew up calling it a cap.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, for my hood peeps, we'll call it a kippies.
Kippies.
Yeah. But,
yeah, that's also good. I've heard that one. Yeah.
It's them South
Even
kippies,
me,
baby.
even me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, morning, everybody. Loads of stuff to do today, and we're going to be doing Democracy 101 a little bit later on, which, if you haven't been here for that before, it's like a crash course in all the stuff you need to know ahead of the elections. We're going to be checking out all the important stuff as we have been for weeks now. And it's how many days to the election? It's less than 50.
Yep.
So it's crunch time. You need to make up your mind shortly. I mentioned this came up after our event last week with the youth voters.
Mm-hmm.
Mentioned how the percentages break down on the IEC's registrations. And this is quite a scary number. So how many registered voters do you think we have between 18 and 21? In numbers, out of 27 million odd registrations.
I'd be surprised if it's a million. I think it's like 750,000 or something like that.
You are very smart. Your guess is in the ballpark. It's somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000.
Not surprised.
Tiny. Okay, so when you see 18 and 21-year-olds, or 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, and everybody's going, oh, the youth, I believe the children are our future. Just like smack them upside the head, because they're only 600,000 at a push. Let's be generous.
Yeah.
Of those mofos even registered to vote. They don't care. They don't care. Now, I'm not going to be sympathetic and say to people, oh, well, they're disenfranchised and they don't really believe in South Africa, and they've been given no reason to believe by the political parties. And I haven't been given that reason to believe either, but I'm registered in voting. That's your civic duty, you useless sons of bitches.
Yes, it is. Actually.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's number one. The second interesting statistic, I discussed this with Pumi Mashiko last week. How many old ass people, like I'm talking people between the age of 80 and 100, 80 and 100 are registered to vote.
The number is definitely higher. It's
again,
definitely higher.
You are good at this.
Yeah.
So Jack is again correct, because the number of old ass, mothball, pink sweet, gray hair, gray ball hair, ancient people who are ready to go and stand in line, cast their votes, put their voice out there and say what they mean and stand up for democracy and our hard-fought battles. Do you know those people? Like, we're talking maybe 800,000.
Yep.
So you tell me whether it's time for us to just say, this generation, they can't help themselves, the 18 to 21-year-olds. I hate to say it, but, you got to meet me halfway. You can take the horse to water, you can't make it drink.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I'm at a point where I'm like, you know what? You guys just figure yourselves out. All right? How about that?
I don't think they have the capacity to be honest with you. I think...
What, the mental capacity?
Yeah. I think at best they'll huddle around a hubbly, have a drink, and call it a day. I think genuinely...
That would be a full working day for them.
Yes, full.
That would be a hard working day. Yeah, because, oh my God, we're so entitled. And,
Yeah, at the end of the day, the most difficult thing they have to do is just get up.
Yeah, get up.
Yeah.
And it's too hard.
It's too hard. You remember I mentioned this? Dr. Jordan Peterson.
We are piling on the young people of South Africa this morning.
Deserve it.
Yes, they do. Yes.
So Dr. Jordan Peterson said, if you want to piss off all of these people that virtue signal and come protest at your talks, just host it early.
Yeah, they won't. They can't wake up.
They can't.
Oh, what a state the state is in. And speaking of the state is in, we're going to be speaking to somebody later on who's written a book, and I think he'll be a very interesting guest. His name is Oyama Mabandla. He is the author of Soul of a Nation. To find out what he thinks about South Africa, and he's a lawyer and businessman. He's got a doctorate from Columbia University, so he's no idiot. He's got a BA in political science. So, I mean, I got one of those, then you must be an idiot. But we'll forgive him because Columbia University with a doctorate's a little bit more of a big deal. And he's a regular contributor to the media on the intersection of art and politics. So he's written this book told through 40 years of South Africa's history. I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion. And then Fundo says in the comments, watch out, Jack. Beggy is despised for his hat. You will be despised for yours.
Yeah, I won't be despised for mine because guess what? I am competent. That's how you win.
Oh, that's the magic key.
That's how you win.
Wake up early, as we did this morning.
Yes, sir.
And be competent. And you're already, you know what? If you are 18, 19, 20, you're listening to us this morning, you're like, screw those guys. I am a different animal. I wake up early. I get stuff done. I'm ready to work hard. You know what? You are going to be enormously advantaged.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
You know how people talk about privilege? You're going to find yourself privileged through your hard work and actions of waking up early and getting to the job and making things happen.
There you go.
Congratulations. You're on your way to becoming the best of your generation, mostly because the standard is so low that even if you're having a slow day, you'll still be better than 90% of them.
Yep.
Those 600,000 18 to 21-year-olds who are registered, you have my respect. I know that you are a vanishingly small group within the group. Remember, we're a young country, right? So that means that the proportion in population of people between 18 and 21 is much bigger than the old ass people we were talking about earlier. Yep. So you actually will find yourselves rare, like a diamond in a sea of just rocks and
pebbles,
sand and gross stuff.
Yep.
All right. A couple of things we've got to talk about this morning. Some things in the news. So the ANC has lost their court bid to keep the MK party from using their name and logo. You think that's funny? Or you're just doing a Zuma laugh?
Yes, I am. The man is a political genius.
He is.
He really is.
Political, if you're Julius. He's political genius.
Do not play with Baba Kedle. He's
smart, right? Well, he is. And he's got he knows how to get under their skin.
Yeah.
Because Umkhonto weSizwe is such an important part of the ANC story. In fact, I went to Lily's Leaf the other day, which is, of course, the place where here in Rivonia they captured so many of the Rivonia trial prisoners, and they rounded them up there, and they took them off to court in Pretoria, and then sent many of them to Robben Island. So it's a very famous site in South Africa. If you haven't been there before, I'm not sure if it's open all the time, but you can make appointments and go and see it. And famously, they've got an Umkhonto weSizwe logo on the one part of the exhibition where they show how the armed resistance in the border countries of South Africa, so Namibia at that point, Southwest Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, how Swaziland also, how in those countries Umkhonto weSizwe was waging their war against the old regime. And it was so funny because I looked at this logo on the building and I'm like, I just took that like as it is.
Yeah.
Didn't change it, even kept the colors the same. And that has to get under their skin. So anyway, the story is that they lost their bid, the ANC, that is, to keep the name and logo for themselves. The ANC has approached the court to stop its former president from using the name and logo. MK Party previously argued the ANC had no standing in this regard. MK Party's interim leader, Jabulani Khumalo, said that they've been vindicated. Today, we are so happy, he says. And we want the whole world to know we've won, and it will cost the ANC. And they've been whipped, and they know it. So He's like adding salt to the wounds,
as he should,
adding insult to injury. Just last month, the ANC lost the bid to have the MK party deregistered as a political party, and the IEC lost their bid to have Jacob Zuma on the ballot. So things are going very well for MK. They've got three victories under the belt
very well
in as many weeks.
Yep. And I'm also keeping in mind that this communicates to his followers in a very real way. He's Teflon right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
he looks unassailable. He's pulling a bit of a Trump, actually. Because, because Trump has had a couple of these cases dismissed. You know, they're bringing all these spurious cases against him.
Yeah, but I mean, like 91 indictments as well. It's like, come on.
They're throwing the book at the man.
Yeah, I mean.
Because they want to get him out of the way. And it's so glaringly obvious. You know, it's transparent as hell. Anyone can see that this is purely political.
Yeah.
Everything from the Stormy Daniels thing, which is like such a non-starter, to the collusion, fraud, the idea that he was an election denier, election interference. It's
the documents that he took home.
Oh, that one's even dumber. I mean, like, you know, Joe Biden, they found documents in his garage. I don't see them taking him to court. But anyway, you know, we could see what they're doing. Anyone could see what they're doing. And I know you're wearing your Make South Africa Great Again hat. That doesn't mean, just for the idiots who may be confused, doesn't mean that we're Trump supporters.
Not at all.
I do feel like in any other country, if it wasn't America we were talking about, and the incumbent president's party was going after the opposition president's the opposition leader like this, we would say, "Oh, banana republic."
Yep.
This is what happens, you know, when democracy falls and fails, and we can see that happening right now.
Yeah,
so very, very upsetting, just because it looks so dumb.
Yeah, and because it's America, the whole world has to find out about it, right? Like, they never do anything on a small scale. It has to be grand, otherwise it's not America. And for me personally, I actually hope Trump wins at the end of the day, when it's all said and done. I mean, when you look at all the indicators during his tenure, even though he had to deal with COVID and all of that stuff, America was in a good place. Maybe not socially, but economically and otherwise.
Well, you can argue, like, has America been in a good place socially since, I don't know, George W. Bush?
Jesus.
But okay. Jesus. I mean, one thing I do want to talk about is the fact that if Trump does win in November, and it's still a while to go, you know, it's not going to happen as quickly as our election is going to take place. But in November, if he does win, they're going to be some screaming, hysterical, out of control, pussy hat wearing, bra burning, armpit hair parading people out on the streets, just complaining with full volition. So I'm excited to see. I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's going to be hilarious to watch.
Absolutely
hilarious.
Gareth's #1 fan in the comments says, "Morning, Gareth. Woke up hard and thought I'd tune in. Healthy testosterone levels." Well, you know what? We appreciate your candor.
Yeah. I'm not sure we needed to know that, but, you know, great. Man.
Yeah, whoever this is, it's like they're saying this quite a lot. They need everybody to know that this is the story.
Yeah, hey.
Very good. All right. Good for you. Gareth, MK is doing an organizational restructure a month before the election and will still finish above the EFF. That's an interesting thought, is that MK could get more votes than the EFF.
True.
Despite the fact that they're really only campaigning now. They've had to fight 3 court battles, which the EFF haven't. Neither of the DA, obviously. And it would be surprising to me if they get less than 10%. I think they're well on their way to getting a substantial amount more than that, which to me indicates that they've done a damn good job. As politics goes, that's playing the game, right?
It's genius.
Yeah.
It's absolutely genius. And the fact that they're annoying the ANC is music to my ears. I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
ANC deserve all the annoyance they can get.
Listen, I don't think they get enough.
Yeah. Who is funding the Konto Sizwe party? Well, Christian, that is a good question.
That is a very good question.
He asks that in the comments. Well, what I can tell you is that 12 political parties have declared donations above the prescribed threshold. So the IEC said a total of these 12 parties have declared donations from private donors, including one Australian-based billionaire.
Okay.
According to the financial statements contained in the Commission's annual report for 22-23 submitted to Parliament, they said that the year under review, the represented political party fund had a total of over 342 million rand available for distribution to represented political parties, with the African National Congress getting the lion's share because we proportionally distribute that.
Mm-hmm.
Of the represented parties, the ANC declared millions, including a 10 million rand donation from Botubo Commercial Enterprise Pty Limited. During the second quarter of the year, the Economic Freedom Fighters declared 150,000 rand in kind donation from a business entity.
Mm-hmm.
The Democratic Alliance declared 15 million from billionaire Martin Moshal. During the second quarter of the year, the IEC said that the Multi-Party Democracy Fund also received contributions amounting to 2.5 million rand from Standard Bank during the last quarter of the financial year. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like to know which businesses are supporting politicians.
Yes, sir.
Any politicians.
Mm-hmm.
It almost doesn't matter to me whether it's, ANC, DA, EFF. I just want to know who's paying who.
Yep.
Because who pays the piper plays the tune.
There you go.
The IEC said that the MPDF, I'm never going to get that right, that Multi-Party Democracy Fund.
It's such a weird term.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. They couldn't come up with anything better than that.
They also said the ANC was the largest recipient of funds from the Represented Political Parties Fund at over 148 million rand during the year. Well, that explains why you're seeing so much ANC advertising around.
Yeah.
Both on the streets and on TV, radio. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much everywhere at the moment.
But, because of its historical significance, the ANC can mobilize people, I think, a lot better than most of the political parties in this country. They've got a really good ground game. Yeah,
I was going to say exactly that. They have their branches, and they
Mm-hmm.
figured that out a long time ago. The other guys are really just still catching up.
Yep.
Trying to make sense of things.
There were a couple of guys walking around my neighborhood in their various party outfits and regalia.
Those
and
terrible leather jackets.
It's so weird. And there's those oversized bibs, those EFF oversized bibs and whatnot. They were walking around the neighborhood. And I thought to myself, at the end of the day, I don't care what all of these ground movements are trying to do. If you cannot convince people to walk out of their houses on the 29th, it's pointless.
There's no point.
Genuinely.
And I wonder how much, because I don't think you're allowed to actively campaign on election day, are you? Or do we not have that rule?
No.
I do know that they're allowed to set up within a certain distance from the polling station.
At the entrance of the polling station.
But you can't go in.
Yeah, that's it.
Although they have agents inside, but they're not allowed to talk to people or whatever.
They're not.
So they can just check that everyone's counting the votes properly, that the IEC is doing their job, that each of the parties has eyes on the prize, that kind of thing. All right, let's leave politics because we'll get to that in the last hour too, in Democracy 101. But I see that you want to talk about the evolution of beauty standards.
Yes, sir.
Is this a controversial subject?
Not at all.
Not?
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm actually full
believe it when I see
with
it.
love today,
okay, here it goes. Here it goes.
A comedian that I absolutely love, Eddie Griffin,
Yes.
made a joke saying, "Isn't it interesting how Kim Kardashian is white again?" What he meant by that is the amount of weight that she's lost. Now she's thin and all of this stuff. And it made me think about it. Like, in the past 30, 40 years, beauty standards have kind of evolved and changed into somehow reverting back to the same thing. Like in the 80s, women that would walk on catwalks and be part of fashion shows and all this stuff were all thin, and you know what I mean?
Well, it's also cyclical, right? So you have you have periods in history where you can even see it in art that women famously Peter Paul Rubens, I think it is the one who painted Rubenesque women, is the term for them, women who had much more shapely and large behinds and bigger buxom breasts.
Yeah.
And that was very en vogue at the time. It was considered a perfect standard of beauty for these women to be what we would call today obese.
Obese, yeah.
Not even overweight, but obese, right? And then it changes. And then, I mean, if you'd showed anyone, I think in the in the 1800s,
Mm.
a woman in the 60s in America, for example, these super thin models, these waif-like, kind of, you had those famous ones even in the 80s. You had Claudia Schiffer, you had Naomi Campbell, you had Elle Macpherson, and those were like the ones I grew up looking at and thinking that's the perfect kind of woman. So it also depends when you grow up.
Yeah.
I've famously heard, a couple of entertainers in America saying in the era they grew up in, it was much more, if you grew up in the Marilyn Monroe era, then you preferred a woman who wasn't so thin, who wasn't so slight. You preferred, I wouldn't say chunky, but you preferred like a very, very thin waist and kind of shapely, more hourglass figure look.
Right.
And I do reckon that what's happened is somewhere around the time the Kardashians became a big deal, like we're talking late 2000s, early 2010s, that was definitely the look.
Do you know what? I think as far as the more shapely rear is concerned, Jennifer Lopez was the first one that made a lot more. Because I mean, black guys have always loved ass, like nice. You know what I mean?
Right.
So to make it globally popular, I think J-Lo was the first one to, kind of break the mold. But I find it so interesting how these things ebb and flow through the years, right? Because
nothing like talking about ass first thing in the morning.
Why not? They're great. So you look at just before J-Lo became a international sensation, you had, as you mentioned, Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, and the likes, and they were rather thin women.
Yeah.
And that evolved into J-Lo and later on Kim Kardashian. But she's now done a 360, I guess. No, a 180, excuse me, from one direction to the other. Like with
maybe she's reading the tea leaves. Maybe the wind has changed direction.
Nah. Nope.
You don't think so?
Nope.
People still into that look?
Listen.
So then is she opting out of it?
I think she is.
Huh.
And whatever she does, the rest of the family does. So Chloe and them have lost weight and all of this stuff.
And none of them really have any personalities of their own. They just do what the lead alpha sister, which is Kim, makes she sets the agenda for the other. The others
She's
are such
the matriarch,
the others are such morons. Or the mum decides and then she tells Kim and then Kim the others just follow Kim. I mean, it's really like, we're talking about people with brains of shrews here. And I mean, if you've watched shrews, they don't really exercise independent sovereignty or their own will. No. Shrews just do whatever the shrew in front of them is doing. And that's how the Kardashians are.
And so, it's very interesting. Like from my neighborhood, the beauty standard specifically for men was very interesting. So if you have somewhat of a calcium deficiency and your legs are a bit bowed like that.
Oh, yeah?
You were a hit.
Oh, is that a thing? You see, I didn't know that. That's definitely an artifact of culture that I am not privy to.
Listen, if you grew up in my neighborhood and when you walked, it looked like you were opening parentheses and all of that stuff. Listen.
What did they have? What's the term for that?
We'd say like it's just brackets.
Brackets.
Bona jegurale bracket. And so there'd be a implication that comes with it. Like immediately we'd assume that you're good at soccer.
Is yellow bone still a thing?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's still a thing.
Yes, it is. If you are light in complexion, you get the girls like this. But listen, the deadly combination is if you're tall, light in complexion, and you've got that bracket going for you. Oh,
you can have anything you want.
You can have whatever you want. The world is your oyster.
Well, agreeing with us is Sanele this morning. Says BBL is on its way out of fashion. So do you agree with that? You think it is?
Yes. The thing is, black men have held steady with their love for the shapely rear, and I don't see that changing. But as far as popular culture is concerned, I think the BBL is disappearing.
Homotso says, don't leave out Beyonce. She's much skinnier and lighter than she was.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
All right. People are talking about Nicki Minaj. Tabo says, the cap makes no sense. When was Africa great? This is the very argument that people had in America. Is like, when Was America great? Well, I'll tell you when our country was great. How about when we had 6% growth under Thabo Mbeki?
There you go.
How about when we were still the Rainbow Nation and we had hope and we believed in ourselves?
Yes,
How
sir.
about then? That was a pretty golden time.
Yes, it
or
was.
were you not there, Thabo, at the time? Or did you not help to make it good? You came afterwards with the
Isa.
state
Like when
capture,
things went
the state
left.
capture generation.
It's
Maybe
unfortunate.
that's why Thabo was being so sensitive about this.
I was actually talking to my friend yesterday about this exact thing, and I was pointing out to him that, man, when we were growing up, like I'm talking 97, 98, 99, in my neighborhood, in Mass, whenever I would wake up to go to school, there'd be a bunch of other people waking up to go do something with their lives for that day. Whenever my grandmother would send me somewhere, she wouldn't give me the address. She'd say, go to Ntate Ramatlare, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because we were a
Right.
community. We lived, we realized that the best way for us to live was side by side instead of at odds with one another. We didn't care that much what the government was doing. We realized that we had autonomy and we needed to do shit for ourselves to make ourselves better instead of complaining.
Right.
Right? So South Africa was great once upon a time. It really was. I don't care what anyone
I think
says.
that's fair. I think
don't
that's
care
fair.
what
We
anyone
were,
says.
for a while, we were the most exciting place to be on earth. We still are in some respects, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about travel in the next couple of minutes, because that's quite exciting.
Yes, sir.
Snipe says the cap ain't it. I still vote for the Stop Nonsense t-shirt. We will get that. Don't worry. Just look, though. We've promised, and now we're finally delivering. You know, things are starting to happen. All right. Giga Shack, exactly. It can be great. It never was great, says Thabo, to carry on his thinking here. We had that Rainbow Nation nonsense, but that's it. Well, it wasn't nonsense.
It wasn't.
Actually, the rest of the world was paying attention to it.
It galvanized
in a positive
all
way.
of us. Yeah. Like, I for those people that weren't alive during that time, I really feel sorry for you because you missed out on something unbelievable.
Well, we know that the people who weren't alive for that and who were too young to appreciate it, they're the ones who didn't register to vote in the election.
Are.
So we'll go back to what we started with this morning.
They are. In fact, we shouldn't be talking to you all right now.
No,
like you guys are not the what's the term I'm looking for? The target market of this specific conversation.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to talk about just now with Achi Adams from Tourvest Travel Services. We're going to talk travel.co.za. This is going to be really useful because we're going to be talking travelnomics. And that means all the questions answered. Like, for example, what's the hottest destination for 2024 so far? You want to know where people are going, where they want to spend their money? What seems to be the new allure of Dubai? Because it's, even though there were floods just last week, a lot of people talking about that.
My cousin is actually in Dubai working right now.
Your cousin's there?
Yep. I was talking to her while, so she sent me this video of the apartments across the street from where she lives. And basically half of the balcony just flew off.
Oh my God.
And
she sent you a video of that?
Yeah. But she's good, thankfully.
I saw a video of someone took a video inside a car where the water was up to almost the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh.
Hectic.
Yeah, it's very hectic.
Oh.
So we'll also talk about the big deals that are around. Where is everybody going? What kind of things do we need to know? It's really useful, practical stuff. So if you think, I'm putting off travel, we might just be able to tempt you into changing your mind this morning. All of that and more on the way. I see Tesla's in the news. Do you want to hear about them?
Yeah.
Tesla has cut their prices. Clever move, once again, in a number of major markets, including the US, China, and Germany. They're facing falling sales, so they decided, fine, we'll cut prices. Move comes after it reported a sharp fall in the global vehicle deliveries in the first 3 months of the year. A price war has been intensifying between the electric vehicle makers, with particularly fierce competition coming from Chinese firms. The company triggered an EV price war 1 year ago when it aggressively cut prices at the expense of profit margins. Last week, Tesla announced plans to lay off more than 10% of the global workforce. On Friday, the firm called thousands of new Cybertrucks in over safety concerns because their accelerator pedals currently risk getting trapped by the interior trim.
Oh,
imagine that. That's not cool.
Yep.
Increasing the possibility of crashes. Tesla's shares have fallen by more than 40% since the start of the year. Scary number. I saw Elon was tweeting this morning, because now I don't even know if he's paying attention to Tesla, but he did say this morning. Apparently, Teslas are the cheapest cars to maintain, and when something goes wrong, to fix.
Okay.
And the most expensive, you want to guess?
I want to say Mercedes.
Almost. German.
So, can't be VW. Put me out of my misery.
BMW.
Okay.
Apparently, that's according to a graph that he shared this morning. The BMW, most expensive cars to maintain, and the least expensive are Teslas. But again, maybe that's just self-serving.
Yeah,
maybe he found the one poll, the one piece of research that makes him look good.
Yep.
Who knows?
But I'm not a person that would best bet against Elon Musk.
No,
it's a bad idea.
Good move.
So, from my vantage point, this seems like a little pothole along the way. It will be fixed all in good time.
Listen, they've put huge money into those electric charging stations all over America and most of Europe. Even here in South Africa, we've got tons of them now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, they're all over the place. Shopping malls have got them. Garages that have them. It's all over the place. I do think this is funny too. Uncle Roy says, I will never swap my Ford Cortina for that Tesla.
Ooh.
Ford Cortina.
Oh,
what a car.
There's
I saw a Datsun yesterday, a brown one.
Oh my word. not these new ones.
This, no, this is not new.
Like old school.
No, this thing is like 1,000 years old. A really old Datsun. With the louvers on the back window.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
What a car. And the guy who was driving it he wasn't old. So he must have inherited it, or guy's proud to be driving that around. And why shouldn't he be?
Man,
if that thing's still going, it's better than something new that's already caved in.
A really good friend of mine has a Ford Cortina too, but like I think it's a 1978 model.
Oh,
I
wow.
could be wrong.
Oh, wow.
And it's a automatic. It's that car, you step into it and you feel like you're in a time machine, but you're moving forward somehow. It's absolutely gorgeous.
You know what's cool about those cars is that the interiors of those cars, they didn't have like buckets or racing seats. It was like a sofa in the front. The front seat is just, in fact, all the seats are just like it's like an upholstered armchair that you would find in the lounge, right?
Yep. And
that's the thing.
If you're traveling with your kids or whatever and they need to take a nap, you just put them in the back there.
Oh, yeah. There's loads of space.
In fact, in those cars, they didn't put seat belts in the back seat.
No seat belts and no kiddie seats.
No.
Kids just rolled around in the back like a boulder.
Have fun.
Beautiful.
Oh, what a
Chinese EVs are burning more and faster than the Ford Kuga. Ooh, bad news for China. I don't know if that's 100% right, but there we go. Remember the sheepskin seats, says Harmin. Now, I wonder if you remember, there was a stage where people were buying those beaded like things that they'd put on the seat, which had big beads on them.
Yeah.
Like massaged people's backs or whatever. I don't know what they were meant to do. They're meant to be super comfortable. They always look terrible. And they're always brown and like cream.
Oh, yeah.
You know which ones I'm talking about?
Yes.
You put it over the seat and like tie it to the headrest.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what those things are called. If anybody knows what they were actually called, because I mean, I could see them in my head, but I don't know what the hell.
You know what? My uncle.
Remember that shit?
My uncle in Pretoria.
How appalling.
Used to have one. He had a Jetta back in the day.
Yes.
And he had those things on the passenger and the driver's seat, but not in the back seat. Those things were so uncomfortable.
With beads. Yeah.
It's so
and the other thing people would have is they would have carpeting, but like actual little carpets.
Yeah.
But of the same fabric that you would make a carpet for a room out of. Not like car carpets.
Yeah.
These were like carpets.
Yep.
You could almost see it's been cut by a carpeting man.
It looks like a spin-off of Pimp My Ride. Do you remember?
But this was Pimp My Ride. I mean, like in those days, you didn't get shops that did detailing and all this stuff. In those days, it was like you would do it yourself,
Mm.
right? So if you wanted to soup up your car, and I remember there were people who would put like a fin on the back long before Subaru started doing this stuff and actually making these cars and selling them. And people would do their own detailing.
Mm.
They would paint shit on.
Yep.
They would. It was like a home job, right? They put lights underneath.
Yep.
I don't know how any of that worked, but there we go. So yes, and sound was a big deal.
Yeah.
Those were also famously the days we had detachable radio covers.
Yes.
Remember, because the people were stealing car radios like it was nobody's business.
Right.
I mean, in my first car at Varsity, I don't know, I lost like 3 or 4 radios. So you would then detach the face so that the radio was worthless without the face, or less worthwhile for the criminal to steal. Because I'm pretty sure they could find other faces.
Yeah, they
somewhere. Anyway, that was a big thing for a while, and then there were those Gorilla gear locks.
Yep.
And the steering locks.
The steering lock.
You remember the steering lock?
My dad had one of those.
You'd put that red thing on and click, 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 click.
Yep.
And you would open it up, and then it would be in the way. So if anyone tried to steal the car, they'd have to drive with this thing, which would make it impossible.
You wouldn't be able to turn a corner,
South Africa, I think that's a South African invention. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like it is. I feel like only we had so many cars being stolen at some point that people were like, we're going to find a way to disable this shit for everybody. And the gear lock. And
there was the gear lock. Yeah, it went from locking the steering.
It would take you like 20 extra minutes when you got to where you needed to be in like the 90s in South Africa.
Just to get out the car.
Just to leave your car to park for varsity or for school or for your job. Take you an extra 20 minutes. You do the radio face, the gear lock, the steering lock.
And then the visor so that your
windscreen protector. You remember that? That was a thing. You would open up that windscreen protector. Yep. Oh my God.
Oh man. Those were the days.
And then Hermine says, after all that shit to protect our cars, mine was stolen just by stealing my keys along with the car. So right. And Christian reminds me here in the comments, there was a flamethrower anti-hijack thing that they put out. Do you remember? Some guy invented a machine with like pipes that came out under the car on the sides. And if someone tried to hijack your car, you pressed the button and it made these flames that came out of the side of the car.
That's a bit extreme.
Yes. Flames that came out under the sides of the car and would burn the person who was trying to steal your car. The steering lock also served as a weapon. That thing looked like a pump gun, says Sanele. Yeah, that's another one. My mother, Azalea says, still has her windshield protector. Speed fluff on the dash. Half a tennis ball on the tow hitch. I never understood that. What was the half a tennis ball on the tow hitch for?
I have no idea.
And fluffy dice on the rearview mirror. A chrome orange peel on the aerial. That is amazing. People are remembering all this shit.
Yeah.
And we thought it was cool in those days. I mean, like there were people who they lived for this stuff, right? Remember the old man's Ford Ranchero V8 with the 8-track tape player? Okay, DK, that's way before my time, but that sounds amazing. An 8-track tape player?
Yep. You'd put it like it would be located under the passenger seat, the front passenger seat.
Yes.
And then you'd pull it out and you'd see all the tapes pop up. It was really cool. So my uncle, Kalema, had...
This is our former president.
Yes.
Okay.
He had this amazing Mercedes, old school.
Yes.
And
one of those long ones.
Yeah. So as a kid, I loved being in that car for 2 reasons. Number one, there was a phone in there. And number two, he had
the big mobile phone, the huge big battery on it.
Right there in the middle. Yeah. And he had this, it's like I guess it was a tape rack, if I can put it that way. And each one had a label. And depending on which tape you wanted to play, you'd press it and it would pop up. And you'd take the tape and put it in there.
That must have been the coolest car in the world.
He's the greatest uncle I've ever met in my life. That car was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, you see, this is the stuff. There's a little nostalgia for you this morning.
Yeah.
All right. It is time for us to talk to Achi Adams. He's, of course, from Turvest Travel Services, and Achi is the guy who we rely on to give us all the goss, all the inside info, the hacks around travel that only he knows because he's traveled so damn much. I think the guy has been through like 23 passports in his life. Achi, how are you, man?
I was annoyed this morning, to be honest.
Why? What happened?
I can tell you politely.
No, go ahead.
Now,
So-
replicate what happened this morning.
Get it
I'll
off
say
your
what I said.
chest. You go for it.
I screamed at my wife and I said, "Babe, the kids cucked in my techies."
Oh, no.
Oh no,
In your tackies?
Yeah, so that's my morning.
Oh, what? I mean, that's so spiteful.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. I think
The
it's
cat.
I think it's because I woke up too early, so it's
What
actually
a
your fault.
Spiteful cat to do that to
Yeah.
your shoes.
So that was my morning.
Listen, that happened to my brother once. We were on our way to school and his tog bag was in the car. And he was like, "What smells like that?"
Mm.
And he opened up his tog bag and the cat or dog or something had made a coil right in the shoe.
Oh,
Hadn't touched the sides. It was like a perfect little turd in the shoe. And I thought, that is a mean,
Yeah.
that's a vicious, horrible, angry little dog. I don't like that at all. So, Achi, I'm sorry you had to have that
No
start
worries,
to
we're
your
all
morning.
good now.
But I did see you smiling while we were talking about all these things that people put in their cars.
Yeah. And one place you know about cars is Dubai.
Yes. Oh,
Mm.
wow. All those fancy, expensive supercars.
yep.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of them were claimed now with insurance.
Oh, plenty, I'm sure.
I wonder how many of them washed away and were in like parking lots where the owners had said, they'll be fine here. This
Yeah.
is Dubai. Little bit of sun, it's not going to cause any trouble.
No, and I'm funny you mentioned the Tesla earlier. It was one of the cars nothing happened to. It actually floated.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
wow.
videos of them floating around.
Really?
Yeah.
So they were okay.
They were okay.
Another win for Tesla.
Another one.
Like Jack says, you can't bet against Elon
You
Musk.
can't.
And
You
you,
cannot.
know, in Dubai, these guys, they just come up with stuff. I saw the other day they've invented now after these floods, because it's not the first time that it's
Mhm.
flooded. I think this was just probably the worst. They've invented these rubber dinghies that you can put your car on and tow it around.
Unbelievable. Those guys really do think of everything.
Yeah,
So
they
that,
do.
that's the breakdown service for the Bugattis.
Yes.
Breakdown service comes with a rubber
So-
dinghy, lifts the car up onto the boat.
I mean, first of all, welcome to our new studio.
Awesome.
But
I love it.
Thank you. But you've created the segue for us to go straight into talking about Dubai because it's such a bizarre place, right?
Yeah.
The rules that apply there just don't apply anywhere else. And they do figure things out because it's such a bizarre, rarefied world. I mean, how many times have you been there? And include the in transit, it's probably
Yeah, about 8 or 10 times.
amazing.
Yeah.
You like the place?
I
Because you
don't
get
mind
people
it.
who love Dubai and you get people who hate it.
I've seen it through a lot of transformation. I mean, if you go one year and go the next year, things have changed. So I've seen the transformation. I've got to admit, for me, it's become a bit sleazy.
okay.
You
It's
know,
all the
if you-
South Africans.
No, it's actually all the Russians and the massage parlors and the
Yeah.
nightclubs and
Really?
yeah.
Because it was quite moral
and very modest.
and modest. People knew, even Westerners and people
Yeah.
from all over the rest of the world who went there abided by the rules. It's
Correct.
now, you're saying it's become a lot more.
Well, it's
Loose.
not as modest anymore. In
Okay.
fact, it's so much so that people flaunt.
Slay queens.
Yeah. So you will see people jogging in their bikinis.
Wow. They would have been
with
arrested
all-
once.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
with all the plastic surgery that's been done, so you can
Huh.
imagine that's right.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's not the same, but I still
Huh.
think it has quite the appeal.
So, would you suggest to someone to actually go there and check it out?
You got to experience it, mate.
Mm.
yeah. You see,
Uh,
I really can't say I know a lot about Dubai, which is why I'm relying on you this morning. When I have been there, it's really in transit.
Yeah. Look, I think for us, it actually, I know one of the topics we're talking about is Dubai as a hot destination.
Yeah.
It's come from nowhere. We spoke last year and it
Mm.
wasn't even on the list.
That's right.
And December saw some 50,000 South Africans in Dubai.
Yeah.
That is massive. If you consider South
Damn.
Africa's most popular destination, holiday destination, is probably Mauritius.
Yeah.
And they see maybe 150,000 South Africans a year, in Dubai getting a third of that
Mhm.
in 1 month.
That's extraordinary, right?
It came out of nowhere. And I don't know. I mean, I've not seen Dubai do any promotional work or anything like that.
Mhm.
However, and you know, my daughters are the best. I mean, they're saying, Daddy, when are you going to Dubai?
Yeah.
I say, why? Well, we want you to taste something for us. Taste something.
Taste something.
Yeah. Because on TikTok, they're seeing all these things about Wingstop. And I'm like, what is Wingstop? It's obviously a chain
Yep.
where you can get wings
Mm.
with special sauces, American brand, and as you
Rick
know in
Ross
Dubai,
apparently started it. Yeah.
you get all these brands in Dubai. You got to taste it, record it, and bring it home so we can see what your reaction is.
Wow.
So it's these influences that they're getting.
That's probably what's pushing people
not
there.
just that. I mean, you got the whole Habibi, come to Dubai.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you get the Habibi, go away.
Yeah.
There's too many of you. If you saw what New Year's Eve looked
Oh,
like.
please.
In
One of my
Dubai.
friends posted a picture of himself with the whole thing, the whole outfit on. He had a falcon on his arm. He's wearing the headdress. Look, he's Lebanese, so
I'm
for him,
laughing,
it's-
but I did that too.
it's I think everybody has to. It's almost like a rite of passage there,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And then you have to do the riding on the dunes
Dune
with your,
safari.
that's part of it. There are all those amazing hotels which have been there now for a while.
Yeah,
But as you say, it's the influences.
absolutely. I think that's what caught us by surprise.
Hmm.
And we get the bookings and we do it, but we're not counting. It's like, oh, another one going to Dubai, another
Yeah.
one going to Dubai.
When you add it all up.
Add it all up, it's quite a lot. And Dubai is not short of accommodation.
Wow.
From 3-star, from apartments and Airbnbs to the uber luxury hotels.
Sure.
I think one of the deals we're talking about today, or two of them are actually in Dubai.
Okay, well, let's just talk about expense because Dubai looks like it costs a lot of money. Is it very, very expensive to go there? Is it expensive to visit? Is accommodation expensive? We know that flights are probably quite reasonable compared to other destinations because they route so many of them through there, right?
So I'll give you numbers.
Yeah.
If you want to fly direct, your starting price is probably around 12,000 Rand with Emirates.
Mhm.
If you're wanting to go with Ethiopian Airlines, you can get away with about 8,500 Rand for a flight, which is not bad.
Okay,
Accommodation ranges, so it depends on your taste and where you're staying in Dubai.
right.
I'll give you an indication. When I was there last time, I decided to split my stay, going with a family as well.
Right.
So stay in Deira, which is the old part of Dubai. 5-star hotel, bed and breakfast was about $1,000 a night. Not bad.
Oh,
And that's for a family room.
okay.
That was a family room. And then we went to Dubai Parks, which is kind of their Disney World,
Right.
which we can do an entire show on, by the way. It's different.
Huh.
We went there. We stayed at Lapida. And the reason we stayed there, and this is the thing that's expensive in Dubai, activities.
Mm.
So if you
Right.
want to go to Dubai Parks, there's no, you don't distinguish between kids and adults. The price is the same.
Huh.
Your entrance is 1,000 Rand per day per park. There's 4
wow.
parks. So a family of 4 is paying 4 grand for the day to enter one park.
Mhm.
The next day, another 4
4
grand to
grand.
enter the other park, whether it's Legoland or Motion Gate. Whereas if you stay at Lapida, that's an autograph collection hotel. It's not cheap. It's about 5 grand for the night, but it
Okay.
includes the parks.
Okay.
So your
Clever.
access
You see,
is
this is why
included.
everybody wants to know why we do this show. And Akhi's giving you serious tips here to save money and to make it work for you.
Definitely.
The other thing is every activity. If you're going to Wild Wadi Water Park, it's $1,000. You want to go to Atlantis to go and see the aquariums, $1,000. Everything
Mm.
is 1,000 Rand per person. It's around in that region.
Mhm.
And the best way to explain eating in Dubai is if you want to eat at the popular spots or restaurants, take what you'd pay here.
Yeah.
So if the two of us go out for lunch and we're going to spend maybe 350 Rand, 400 Rand for that meal for the two of us, it's going to cost you the same, but in dirhams.
No,
So
okay.
that is expensive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the trick on that is rather eat from the app, the Mr. Delivery apps. Deliveroo is what they use
Mhm.
because you get all the deals on there where you get buy one, get one free.
Coupons and that
So
kind
you
of
can order the
Excellent.
same Five Guys burger stack,
Mm.
but you'd get buy one, get one free.
That's pretty interesting.
That
Okay,
is.
so let's just start where we should have started
Yeah.
with this because we skipped ahead to Dubai. It came up as it usually does. But let's just look at the hottest destination for 2024 so far. And you mentioned like South Africans like Mauritius, they like Dubai. Any surprises in there before we get to the actual hottest destination?
I think we mentioned before Egypt.
Okay.
And that Sharm el Sheikh, which is
Very
the
good.
beach region.
Mhm.
And the biggest reason for that is their number one tourists that go to Sharm el Sheikh are the British. And there's currently a travel advisory in the UK for traveling to Egypt. And I think it's because of the Middle East conflict.
Mm.
Mm.
So all those resorts are sitting empty.
How cheap are they?
Well, I've got one of the deals, which we'll bring up a bit later.
Excellent.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. It's an example of.
By the way, all these deals you're going to find on travel.co.za, so you don't have to stress if you don't get the info now.
Correct.
You can just look it up there
So
later.
Dubai is still hot. I don't think it's going to let
Sure.
off this year, but Sharm el Sheikh is definitely one to keep an eye on.
That's good. And that's on the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Some beautiful beaches, really, really smart hotels.
Good food.
Yeah. I know someone who went there just a couple of months ago. He said it was fantastic. He took his family.
And the great is to get there with Egypt Air, you stop over in Cairo and you can spend a day doing the tours of the pyramids and stuff like
That's
that.
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
is
I like
pretty
it.
cool.
Okay, so you mentioned Dubai. We've talked now about Egypt. Any other deals that you want to highlight, and then we can get into the actual numbers.
Okay, so I'll fly through them. I'm not going to give you too much detail.
Cool.
We've got a place called the Kayon Jungle Resort, which is in Bali. So all these deals are minimum 40% off with travel.co.za at
Sure.
the moment.
Oof.
Look at this. Here, it's on the screen now in case you want to see. If you're not following us on YouTube and you're not liking and subscribing, you're missing out because we've got it all up there for you to look at. The Kayon Jungle Resort. That looks amazing. How's that pool?
It's not cheap, right? That is the 40% off price.
Wow. So normally it would cost you 40% plus.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So 8,000 Rand per person
Around
per night.
20,000 Rand a night is the normal price.
Okay, but you go for 3 or 4 nights, you got a proper holiday.
Correct. So we decided to choose places for the show that's not the ordinary.
Okay.
And you could supplement. A lot of people are doing this now. They'd book the cheap 3-star in Bali, but spoil themselves for a weekend at a place like the Kayon Jungle.
Beautiful.
That's smart.
That place looks fantastic.
Yeah,
that's
All right.
amazing.
What else have we got?
You've got Dubai, the Atlantis, the Royal, which is Dubai's newest posh hotel, opened in 2023 by none other than Beyonce herself.
Wow.
She charged them $25 or $24 million to open us to have a 60-minute
I
set.
remember that.
Oh, yeah.
That's
So that's trending a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
And
Beautiful
surprisingly, it's actually not a bad price. I mean, I know it's a discounted price, but that's actually for what you're getting over there is pretty decent. At 10 grand a night, it's Uber 5-star luxury on the Palm. To get in the door, you need an invitation. So even if you're media and press and you go and you get to the front door, the bouncers are there and they're not going to let you in. I think it's because they get a lot of celebrity guests.
Oh, so
Yeah,
if you want a celebrity spot, that sounds like a good one, right?
Yeah, correct. And if you got a booking, obviously, you get in. The last one, I think we spoke about this as well before. This is Saudi Arabia, Al Ula, the Habitas. And I promised I'd bring you a rate. And we managed to get you Habitas Al Ula rate.
Oh, wow.
There's a
Look
little
at
video.
this. Now, hang on a second, because you told me last time we spoke, Achi, Saudi Arabia is really, they're playing hard to win. And this is the coolest, most interesting destination. They've got things no one else has.
Yeah.
I mean, the natural beauty there, the unspoiled, unexplored for most of us in the rest of the world, qualities of Saudi Arabia. And there's no shortage of money. So when they make a hotel or they put something in place, so they develop some resort, they really do it properly.
Absolutely. I mean, they're going at it big time. Al Ula is one of the destinations. But they incentivize the hotels to come and build amazing properties. In Al Ula, Habitas and Banyan Tree, the popular ones, they're very, very expensive. But I don't know if you saw in that clip, there's a little trailer there. That's Salt Bay.
Yeah.
Even he was paid to come and bring a trailer of his
and
food.
look at the pool,
Wow.
look at the scenery, that desert. I mean, listen, when you think of the desert, you don't think of that. That's magnificent.
Definitely not.
So that's a luxury stay at Habitas. That's going to
Beautiful.
cost you about 14 grand a night.
Okay. I like this, though. This is worth saving for.
Yeah.
Got you. All right.
Yep.
All right, then we go to Greece, Mykonos. One of
Who
our
doesn't
favorite
love
places,
Greece?
and a place that people would just die to go and stay at.
Oh,
This is in
man.
Mykonos, Kavu Tagu. In Mykonos, that is at sunset, and as you can see, all the guests are sitting down
Yeah.
in the pool to catch the rays or catch the sunset.
It's like, this is the most Instagrammable thing
Yeah.
I've seen. so
it
far.
is stunning. You got to book a year in advance
Wow.
during the European summer.
What's the deal there?
This one's 16 grand a night.
You know what? For Mykonos, because we know it's expensive, and would that be in the middle of summer?
Middle of summer.
Wow.
So you could take your
That's
3-star
good
for
value.
5 nights and pop over for 2 nights.
I had friends who go there and they said to me, it's hugely expensive. So if you can get it for that,
Yeah, it's not bad.
even if it's just 2 nights, worth it.
Correct.
It looks like money well spent.
Damn.
Okay,
Yeah, I
then
like that.
we get to the world's only 7-star hotel. I couldn't leave this out. That's the Burj Al Arab in Dubai. We all know that one. It's famous. It is still the only 7-star hotel.
Now, what makes it 7-star?
That's what I was wondering too.
I've not been in, to be honest, because I know like just to go and have a high tea costs you about 5 grand.
Yo. Okay, so you basically anything
Jeez.
that is luxury that you can imagine, these guys have thought about.
Yeah, I've heard, and I'm stand to be corrected, but I've heard you order a coffee, it's got pure gold dust on top of it,
Oh,
which
wow.
means
Oh my
that
goodness.
night you're really gonna cut gold.
Yeah.
What are we talking cost-wise?
23,000 rand as the low end, and the high end for a standard room. By the way, not even a fancy room like the one on the right there, which is the underwater room. That probably costs about 75 grand a night.
A night.
Yeah.
Goodness.
You got to dream, people.
gotta dream.
You got to
Yeah.
dream.
Yep.
Okay, but then we get to the fun stuff. So
Okay.
we're gonna go with Phuket.
Okay.
We all know Phuket's
Mhm.
really affordable. People underestimate it.
Yep.
This is the Island Escape Resort by Burasari. It's on Coconut Island.
Yes.
It's not on Phuket mainland. It's its own island.
Mm.
Right.
7 nights, not a night, 7 nights.
So,
It's 5-star.
I mean, you were telling us about like 10 grand a night for Saudi, for example. Now we're talking 7,500 rand for 7 nights.
Yeah, person.
And it's a 5-star hotel.
And the room we chose for that one, because the Thailand hotels like to give you different types of rooms.
Mm.
Standard room, a balcony room, a sea view room, garden
Yeah.
view. We chose what's called a pool access room. So
Damn.
if you look at that picture, from your balcony, you walk straight into the pool.
Mm.
So the pool access room is 7,500
Damn, that's
for
good.
7 nights.
For 7 nights?
Not per night, for all 7 nights.
That's fantastic.
Gareth, I think I need to book a vacation.
Yeah,
I
I
might not
think
be
that's-
around.
That one's quite reasonable for 7 nights.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness.
So
Damn,
why-
Achi. All right, so you're bringing us the good, the
Yeah.
bad, and the ridiculous.
While I
Yeah.
was waiting, I actually did a search. I said, I know I pulled up this 5-star, very fancy private island kind of scenario. What does a normal 5-star go for?
Mm.
Under 1,000 rand.
No,
You can get 7
Way.
nights for 900 bucks. And that is for the room.
you're joking. So then you just have your flights and a couple of expenses.
That's it.
And, things are cheap in Thailand. Thailand, I think, it's gone through a patch where it actually, didn't have the same numbers as before.
Mhm.
I think the airfares just jumped from 7,000 rand airfares to 13,000 rand airfares, and people needed to adjust their budgets.
Mhm.
But they've stabilized. You can fly with Singapore Airlines. They've got fantastic schedules. When they have a special, it's about 12 grand to Phuket, and another 1,000 rand gets you 7 nights accommodation.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
All right, so we've had just the most incredible deals here. You got some of them that are probably a little bit too dear for some of us, but others that, you've got to experience some of this stuff. And I think it's so great that you've done the research
We
for
got
us.
one more for you, Gareth.
Go on,
The
bring it
last
on.
One more.
So this is the Baron Sharm el Sheikh Resort.
Okay, so here's
Again,
Egypt,
It's
like you
Egypt
said.
again, yeah.
Here's the difference with this one. It is also 7 nights. It's also 5-star. It's 12 grand, not the 7.5. But this is all inclusive.
Oh,
That means all your meals, all your drinks, all your pancakes, all your pizzas, all your desserts, everything. Your wine, your beers, for all 7 nights.
Oh, wow.
That's 12 grand.
that's fantastic.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've thank goodness we've had Achi to do all our homework for us. Thank you. This is amazing. I love this. It's like you get to fantasize for a couple of minutes about where you want to go, and then you actually can go and book it. Travel.co.za. Make your dream holiday a reality. Achi Adams, thank you so much. Very good to have you here.
Cheers,
Achi, of
guys.
course, from Turvest Travel Services. You can find out more on travel.co.za. All of those options are there.
Yep.
I mean, it's just waiting for you. Amazing. Thanks, Achi. Nice to see you. It is 7:00. We're going to take a quick break. When we're back, we'll carry on Democracy 101 and so much more. Don't go anywhere.
This week on the Auto Trader Podcast.
In terms of just interesting naming conventions as well, one that has been quite famous over the decades is Lamborghini naming their cars after famous bulls, pretty much, that were used in, is it Aventador? What's the Spanish name, actually? I'm not 100% sure.
All of them would be. I mean, whether it was Huracan, Aventador, Countach, they were all named after
famous bulls.
Bulls from Spanish bullfighting. And it was just the whole raging bull mantra theme that they were trying to carry across. You know, the coat of arms is the raging bull. And they've just stuck with that.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
It is time for us to do some Democracy 101. If you've just woken up and just joined us, or you've just tuned in, whether it's on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, anywhere. I mean, people are watching us on TikTok live this morning too. I don't know how that works, but they are. And we are live on the Real Network. Democracy 101 is where we get to talk about some of the things that affect our elections coming up. Shortly, we've spoken to people from the IEC, we've spoken to analysts, we've spoken to politicians, we've spoken to political parties. Some of them I've never heard of before.
Yep.
But there's so much to talk about when it comes to South Africa and our very unique form of democracy, and the way that we are still a young democracy. We're growing, but we're getting to 30 years old, which is a good age to be.
Yes, it is.
And it brings with it a lot of questions. And this morning, obviously, is an opportunity for us to explore some of those questions. So we're going to talk to somebody who's written a book about this called The Soul of a Nation. And his name is Oyama Mabandla. He's a lawyer, businessman, holds a doctorate from Columbia University, a BA in political science from the University of California, San Diego. He's a regular contributor to the media on the intersection of arts and politics. That is his book. You can see Jack has got it right there, Soul of a Nation. So it is our great pleasure to have Oyama in the studio with us this morning. Oyama, thanks for waking up early to come and join us. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Congrats on the book.
Congratulations. Yeah.
It is my pleasure.
Yeah.
And much appreciated. Thank
There you
you.
go.
Now, people write books for various reasons, but I think yours is quite interesting. You've taken us through 40 years of our history in this country, and it's interesting because it involves your story quite centrally. Tell us, without giving away too much, we want people to buy the book, but tell us how you came upon the idea to write this and what your inspiration was behind all of that.
I've been writing op-eds, for newspapers. Whenever something assails me, whether it's a Springbok win, whether it's a jazz concert,
Sure.
But because I come from a political universe, in the sense that I was in the struggle as a young man, I write a lot about that. But I always try and twin it, with the arts, intersection of politics and the arts, politics and jazz especially. So in the process of doing that, I was called by a publisher with just a piece I just done, on a raid in Maseru in 1982, which I survived. 42 people died. And they felt that I had a story to tell. Initially they wanted me to write a memoir, but I said, I'm too young to write a memoir. I'd wanted to write an anthology of essays, about the things that I write about. However, they say, well, look, there's no purchase for essays in this country. People like narrative stories.
They want to read a whole book.
Yes, of dry analytical work,
No, that doesn't sound very fun.
They say they buy them, but they don't read them,
Yeah.
So, I was also advised by Sister Barbara Masekela. She's my elder, sister I love a lot, who says, Oyama, inject some personal story. Even if you do engage in these arcane topics, of the evolution of our dispensation, inject a personal story. And I think we've succeeded in doing that, because you see my story evolve from the evolution of my own consciousness to the evolution of the young democracy, to the difficulties it's facing now, and the kind of rebirth I am proposing.
So how do you think we're doing? Because people are always asking, have we done the right thing in this country? Are we moving in the right direction? We've had some ups and downs. Jack is wearing a Make South Africa Great Again hat. We were talking about when was it great? Well, I think it was. There was a magical time in the 90s, early 2000s even, when really we had a lot going for us. The world's attention was firmly focused on us in a very positive way. We had a very powerful story to tell. People wanted to hear it. We had some magic, whether it was the Arch, Madiba, the various characters in our arts and music scene who played such an important role. You mentioned Barbara Masekela, but Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba. We were fighting a good fight all over the world. People cared about what we had to say, and we had moral capital too. We were power players for a little while, certainly on this continent. And I think in the hearts and minds of so many people across the world, we were the guys who were getting it right. I mean, do you agree with that?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, lest we forget, this is a dispensation, a democratic breakthrough that was cheered on by the entire universe, entire humanity. I mean, our struggle against apartheid was probably the biggest global movement ever. It will never be, achieved again. We did erase the ire of global humanity, against the evil of apartheid. And as you say correctly, when we had that breakthrough, it was a moment of celebration, not just for us, for the entire world. You know, I do believe that the inauguration in 1994 was attended by the biggest number of
heads of state
in
the world. Yeah, I think it was.
And to this day, even as we're mired in difficulty, we still have, I believe, the second number of embassies in the world.
Second highest number of embassies, really?
I think only second to America.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh.
So we are still, and that's a halo effect.
It's amazing anyone can buy property in Pretoria.
That's a halo effect, if you write, from the democratic miracle of 1994. Are we doing well? No.
No. But I'm kind of curious about when it turned, because I find it's a little facile to say, oh, well, it was just Jacob Zuma. People are prepared to put everything. He's like the scapegoat.
Yeah, he is.
For so many people. I don't believe this, but
there's a bit of recency bias with that.
Well, exactly. People throw him into the ring and they say, well, he can take all the blame, and then we can say we were great before and we will be great after. It turns out we haven't been so great after. So it couldn't have been just him. He wasn't the only bad apple. And although he shouldered a lot of the blame for what happened in that period, there were certainly others who were involved. But we as a society, and this is kind of where I think you've written this book, and it's apposite that we're talking to you this morning. We've talked so much generally about politics. What do we as a society, what do the citizens of this country have to own about the good and the bad? Because we had something, we lost something, we've got to regain something. Where's our responsibility? It's fine for us to blame politicians, and that's so obvious. What's our job?
Agree with you in total, Gareth.
Thanks. Thanks. I love being agreed with.
I think the fault is we lost our agency as citizens. We yielded it to politicians in 1994. We said there's a breakthrough. There are all these great people, Nelson Mandela, and all the people around him from exile, from prison. These were our heroes. We cheered them on, and then we said, it's time to party. And you never do that in a democracy.
Right.
The price of democracy is eternal vigilance.
Right.
Never yield the democratic sphere to politicians. The politicians must respond to us.
And once you give them some of that responsibility, they take it, and they never give it back.
Or they don't use it optimally.
Okay.
Because the whole point is our desires. We design our desires as citizens. And this is what we push politicians, if you like, to achieve on our behalf. That's why we elect them. You shall do this for us. This is what we want. As citizens, we design our desires and then we fight for them. We go on the street. People go on the street. Democracy is about that. It's about marching. It's about doing anything to get attention of those who govern us. So if we yield that and think the only thing we do is to show up in a cameo appearance every 5 years, and then things will just magically, change.
Do you think at any point in time it was what you're talking about was a result of just how difficult it was for people to get to the point where we could have a democratic election in this country? Was it we've gone through 50 years of apartheid, we've been fighting and all of this stuff, we finally have the vote, thank you?
Absolutely. People were tired.
Yeah.
It was time to party. But lest we forget, we had this supernal, personality with great moral power and wattage, Nelson Mandela, and his party, then. These are people who had fought, who had midwifed this freedom.
They had credibility.
They had credibility.
Yeah, sure.
So we could afford to think, well, they'll continue being, great.
Yeah.
And I think that was our mistake, Our mistake, again, was to yield the space that is supposed to be occupied by the public, by the citizenry, by the populace, as they say, the politicians. Now, the political sphere is indispensable for the success of any nation.
Right.
When you yield it, when the best amongst us, let me put it this way, when the best amongst us eschew politics and go and do other things, who do we leave the politics to? Because nature
The worst of us.
Yes.
No. Then the dangerous people come in. And what do? They try to help themselves. We've seen that very clearly. But the arts are a major focus of what you talk about here too. And South Africans, if nothing else, we're a very creative nation. I do see the green shoots of our artistic best. You talk about the best of us. Our artistic best, I see how Amapiano is taking over all over the world. I see how African art, and particularly South African art, is starting to have a renaissance in all kinds of places, including Venice and New York and everywhere else. There are things that we are doing that seem to be breaking through. Thank goodness for our artists. Thank goodness for our sports people. So much of the time, they're making us proud, in spite of so many other parts of society letting us down. Do you think that that's something to be hopeful about?
hopeful about, but encouraged and different. You know, I always think of the arts as having provided a soundtrack for our freedom struggle. And the arts ought to be enlisted in the recovery, rebirth, if you like, enterprise. Because they're good at telling stories. They're good at engaging people. Music,
Right.
theater, and all of that. Does a better job than reading through this. You know what I'm trying to say.
Well,
Well, I'm an artist.
well,
I'm an
sadly.
artist. I'm an artist.
Sadly so.
And
Yeah.
sadly,
I'm an artist.
sadly
but-
not enough people are reading the stories anymore. You know,
Absolutely.
they've become disconnected from their own past.
So I think it says something about us that in spite of all this decrepitude around us, you know, our art, our music has survived. And it's, in some respects, you know, it's flourishing.
I love that word decrepitude, because that's the word to describe the state we find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're starting to feel a little bit hopeful now with the election. That brings a lot of people start getting very hopeful. We've felt this before. There've been a few elections where we thought, change is coming. It's time for us to up the ante. Now we can really show what it is to be a maturing democracy. And then we end up with more or less the same after the elections. We can't put all our hopes and pin all our hopes on one person. That's dangerous. We can't pin all our hopes on one party. That's dangerous. Is there a chance that we could bring it all together in your mind and with your experience and having written this book and gone over the story of South Africa? Is there hope that you think we could cobble together a bunch of smart, thoughtful, enterprising architects who can make the next decade the kind of decade we need, where we can uplift poor people, create employment, start invigorating society and culture again?
In fact, I think that's the central point of this book, if there's anything else. I mean, I know it says a lot of things, but one of the things I suggest is a grand conclave, you know, another convention, you know, to go over the kind of difficulties we're having, because I think they defy any party logic. No one party has any monopoly of ideas on how we can fix this joint. I think it's going to take all of us, citizens, in a grand conclave.
Yeah.
You know, similar to what we did in Codesa. You know, that brings in political parties. I mean, they are representative of people. We're in a democracy. They've been elected, and certainly they'll have been elected.
Makulu Mbiza. Mbizo. Yeah.
Yes, a Makulu Mbizo. So you have the politicians, you have civil society in its variegated forms.
Sure.
Abahlali baseMjondolo, Section 27, and all these groups. You have the think tanks, you know, Mapunguvwe, you know, the Institute of Social Security, and Bernstein's Center for Development and Enterprise, I think that's what it's called, CDE. You have the foundations, you know, the Mbeki Foundation, the Mutlande Foundation, the Mandela Foundation, the de Klerk Foundation.
Yeah.
We have academics. So that kind of conclave, you know, that can, as you say, have people who can redesign our architecture for success. In the same way as the folks who gathered in 1991 at Codesa managed to do, you know, with the interim constitution that we adopted in 1993, which has become the basis for our governance, you know, in this society.
You know, you raised, sorry, Jack, I just want to, because this is an idea that I just want to carry on for one more thought with Oyama, because I think he's put a very good scenario in my head. Yeah, we don't struggle in this country to see where we want to go. I think there's wide consensus about what we would like to achieve. Everybody in South Africa seems to be of the opinion that we need the country to grow. We need to solve for young people who are unemployed. We need to make opportunities available for those young people. We need to increase safety because women in particular are predated upon so much. These are all things we agree on. So everybody, you know, they tie themselves in knots in South Africa trying to figure out what it is to be South African. You know, what is Heritage Day? What does it mean? Which language of the 11 official languages should we be giving attention to now? We tie ourselves in knots over stuff that we actually we're not particularly concerned whether, you know, I saw Winnie Madikizela Mandela Street now. These show up on my navigation apps. Whether or not those things are as important, we all know where we want to be. And what you just said now is so helpful, because we've got to realize, like, we already have a lot of good things in common, and we have an idea. We have a roadmap, which is why I brought up the navigation. Kind of know where we want to go. It's not going to be hard to get there. We've done it before. Do you think that there's something in that?
Absolutely. We've done it before. You know, what did that Vodacom ad used to say? We've been doing it.
We've been having it.
We've been having
it.
That's good. I like that.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think there's a sense, you know, that is recognized by everyone that something is not going right. In spite of all these policies that we have, it seems that there are certain things that have eluded, you know, this democratic dispensation for a very long time, one of which is employment. You know, you can't have a country with, using the broader measure, an employment of over 40% and think you're going to have a peaceable society. That cannot happen. You're going to have a crime-free society. You know, a society where women are not predated upon. Because those are the pathologies of hopelessness. When 41% of your productive capacity is idle, you're inviting trouble.
Very bad.
And now, this is also accompanied by a very dangerous trend. Folks are not voting. Folks have checked out of the political environment. So when you have that misalignment, you have these difficulties that have been very stubborn. A stubborn trope of our democracy, unemployment. You know, we've never really gotten it right. I think at most, under Thabo Mbeki, we got it to 30%. I mean, still high.
It is.
You know, still high, or let's even say 25%.
Sure.
No country survives that type of unemployment, you know. Now, when you have citizens now not agitating for those things through social movements, then we have kindling for the kind of thing that we experienced in July 21st. Because when folks believe, or have increasingly come to believe, that politics and voting are no longer levers for transformational change, transforming their lives, what do? They engage in other measures.
Yeah, it becomes anarchy.
Yes.
So the name of your book is Soul of a Nation. And what you've just alluded to is social cohesion. I guess a social pact, if I can put it that way. At this point in time, I'm one of those people who feel like there's a lack of patriotism in this country. We argue and fuss amongst one another about, no, you're Zulu, you're Sutu, you're this. We are so disconnected. I want to hear from your point of view, especially seeing as you went through the struggle. What role does patriotism play, especially in 2024?
Key. Well, that's the only way we can save this country. And you see it, you know, flourish from time to time through our sporting achievements. I mean, when the Springboks won, you know, in 2019, when the Springboks won last year, this country came to a standstill. Across color, we became South Africans, patriotic folk. We were in love with our country. And in a sense, that's what the Springboks have been doing. They've been providing an elixir for our participating spirit, you know. The struggle was about just that, to create a unitary South Africa. The people shall govern. All South Africans. South Africa is a country for all who live in it. I mean, that's the preamble of the Freedom Charter. And that's what we fought for. But in times of difficulty and stress, you find that even stuff that undergirded, if you like, our constitution, those are our values, starts to recede, start to be subverted, because people's lives are not going well. Now they become vulnerable to all manner of demagogues who say, if you can just do this and do that, they start finding scapegoats. And that's when things go awry. Now, also, let me just say this on patriotism, the youth of this country. Because things are not going well for many of our youth. When we're talking about 60% unemployment. What do they blame? Again, they find a scapegoat. The scapegoat is the Constitution of 1994. Folks sold out.
It's interesting that they go for that rather than for blaming the current crop of leaders. It's interesting they go for the whole system, right? And this is happening in America too. You see people talking about how, no, the whole system has to come down. You're like, no, it's not the system. Those institutions need repairing, but they were built to last. Why do you want to tear it all down? These young people who say that make me nervous.
It's the thought of a quick solution.
Yes.
Like it's really easy to blame someone who kind of leaves you devoid of work.
No, but I think it's also just a like knee-jerk reaction of destruction. Like, I'm unhappy, so let's just tear it all down.
You know, Mek Maharaj addressed this point powerfully. You know, he says the democratic breakthrough of 1994 was not the end of the struggle. Lest we forget, none of the protagonists had vanquished each other. So we reach a settlement. The settlement by its nature can never be perfect.
No, someone's going to be unhappy. You both leave the table.
But it's perfectible.
Right.
You can improve. It's almost like a marriage. You improve on it day by day by doing the work.
Yeah.
In this particular case, it would be an intergenerational enterprise. It's not going to, our problems are not going to go away in 30 years. You know, but what we don't want is to go back.
Yeah.
You know, when our hospitals are not functioning and all of that. But the point of the matter, I think that's what Mek was saying, is because we have state power, we can use it to improve our condition. Because we've got state power. So correctly, instead of blaming the government, not the state rather, the government for our ills, we blame the Constitution.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to do so. You know, it's easy to do so, and partly because some of the politicians say that. No, it's the Constitution that has been a factor. We could have done much more transformation. We could have done this. We could have done that. It's the Constitution, because the Constitution was a sellout affair. You know. And Mek Maharaj says, guys, what you have here is a miracle. Build on it. Don't touch it.
Oyama, I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is something I hear and refrain all the time from young people, and it drives me up the wall. Because look, I mean, I'm hardly a spring chicken, but I'm not ancient either. And what I've realized is that the sort of people who talk about, oh, we would have done better in 94. I'm like, no, you wouldn't have. There's not a chance. You don't have the character. You don't have the experience. You don't have the amount of suffering and understanding that the people at that point had. There was a lot of compromise, but there was also an enormous amount of effort, time, and respect put into it. None of which the young people who want to tear down the Constitution or anything else and call Mandela a sellout, none of them have any of that. Right? I mean, it's cheeky. It's like, a toddler walks into the room where all the adults have built civilization and says, please, you guys, I could have done a better job. We can't take the toddler seriously. We chase it back to its crib.
Yeah. And it's mainly because they do not have a genuine understanding of what went into what the country became ultimately. Like for a lot of us, I actually saw a clip not too long ago on X, and what blew my mind is a video of this lady who was a domestic worker, and she's talking about her experience, but in flawless English. Flawless. And the code switching happens, and she then speaks in flawless Xhosa.
Hmm.
You'd be hard pressed to find young people in this country today that can code switch in and speak and communicate
both
as
perfectly,
as
right.
effectively in both languages. And for me, I walk away thinking to myself, it's because people just don't want to do the work. The same people that will scream and shout from the top of buildings about white monopoly capital work in those buildings alongside the people who are called white monopoly capital.
Yeah.
No, I think, when things go awry, when things go bad, people find scapegoats.
Mm.
It's just the nature of, human beings.
Mhm.
And it requires engagement. It requires education, which is why I'm calling for this grand conclave. We should involve the youth. So we sit down and explore.
If they'll pitch.
We
No,
hope
but,
so.
but Oyama, we started this morning's conversation about how I think it's just under 600,000 people between the age of 18 and 21 registered for these elections. Just under 600,000. This is the majority of the population in demographic terms. And only 600,000 could be bothered to even register. Now, we can, as Jack and I were saying earlier, we can wonder and figure out how we went wrong. Have we let these young people down? What can we do to persuade them? There's a lot of talk this week about KFC being handed out at party rallies and, people being given T-shirts just to encourage them to get out of bed and come and register and vote. But I almost feel like a lot of these young people, we should just carry on because they're not going to necessarily all jump up and join us. And maybe it is their fault at some level. Maybe it isn't just the parents and the friends and the parties and the political leaders. Maybe it's them too. They need to take some responsibility.
But Gareth, as you say correctly, they are the majority in this country.
Yes.
And most important, in the future in this country.
Yes.
They cannot be left alone. They need to be engaged with. And partly why they say these things is because of what has happened to their life chances. When people are sitting idle, you go to Soweto now, at 11 o'clock, you find the streets are just full. So there's despondency, there's disenchantment, there's alienation. Which is why they're checking out of the electoral system. And you're right, they'll check out of conclaves like this, And thus we need to find solutions, to this malady. But this is a ticking time bomb. If our youth are alienated from participation in this polity, what are they going to do? They're going to burn it down.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's one of those difficult things of trying to convince someone who doesn't want to do anything to do something. It's getting the mentality to change from where it is to where we would like it to be is no small feat. I'm not sure how it began, but increasingly over the years, people have gone from understanding the fruits of genuine labor to seeing how quickly they can go from point A to point B. We are constantly looking for shortcuts. It's for me, it's just as terrible to bribe a metro police officer as it is to steal from the high echelons of government. I see no difference in that crime. To me, it should be treated just the same. And if we were to perhaps start showing young people that there are actual consequences to bad behavior, and we start championing the good behavior, perhaps we might be able to turn this thing around. I'm not sure, but that's just my mini hypothesis.
Well, Jack, there's a reason they coined the word alienation. It can be alienated from self. In this book I open with an epigraph on exile. What is exile? The unhealable rift between a human being and the geographic space. Unhealable. That's how Edward Said describes it. I'll go further myself, that exile is being alienated from your sense of home, or your notional home. And you can be home, you can be at home physically. Once in exile, because you're alienated. And what is happening, with a lot of our people in this country. There's alienation.
Yes.
And we need to deal with it. Leaving it untended is an invitation to mayhem. We've already seen this in July of 2021. You know, and James Baldwin has a book, I mean, one of his most famous book, The Fire Next Time.
Yeah.
We escaped
Right.
because all the factors that point to social unrest were there. In fact, they've worsened now with the power outages. There's something new now called water shedding, you know, all of those kind of things. So things are not going well. The alienation will deepen. And thus, I've written this book. It's a call to arms. We need to save our republic before it's too late. Before now we're turning on each other. Because, you know, if we don't, I mean, we can prescribe, you know, harsh measures. People must be arrested. People must be prosecuted. But, you know, when you don't have a state, where state has been hollowed, you know, I mean, how many...
It's already an anarchy in some ways, right?
The police, as you say, the police who are supposed to be crime fighters are in the enterprise, you know.
So, I mean, I do agree with you that your book is necessary, and that's part of the reason we wanted to have you on, because I really think that this is an important philosophical and also introspective journey that we all need to head down. And if we don't, then we really can't be counted among the ones who will share the spoils if it does work. But we also can't moan the whole time if we're going to keep ourselves outside of it. You said the words, eschew the political part of our responsibility at the beginning of this interview, and I could not agree more with you. I think it's tremendous that you've written this book. I do agree with Uncle Roy in the comments who says, CODESA 2.0 is definitely needed. This is kind of what you're saying about the conclave, the great Makulu Mbizo.
Indeed.
But he says, thankfully, the election results will force us to have one. And this is another cool thing about South Africa. You know, when you're living in history, you don't really appreciate the big picture because you're going through day-to-day load shedding, water shedding, all this nonsense that we have to deal with. But South Africa is such a diverse place. And in our diversity, we have all these political parties that represent various demographic, psychographic, value groups. And as a nation, we're not giving any one of them all the power. As a nation, we're actually sharing out the influence with all of these different groups. In so doing, creating the kind of government that we need, a truly diverse, truly inclusive, truly consensus-based approach, which is kind of what happened in CODESA all those years ago. This could be, the election could do that work for us of creating that big imbizo, because it would force these people into a room together.
I hope so. In fact, if I were the new president, one of my first pronouncements, you know, at my inauguration is calling for an imbizo, because these problems, as I say, are beyond the capability and efficacy of one political party. We've seen that.
Yes.
You know, whether it's winning 60% or winning 62%, these problems have persisted. You know, so we need to find, you know, an answer to this before our democracy, hard-won democracy, goes up in flames. You know, and we've also seen that coalition governments, unfortunately, are not working. The proportional representation system needs to be looked into. You know,
because it works for parties, not for
not for the citizen.
People,
You know, we need to be able as citizens, you know, to hold our representative directly accountable. You need to know, as Gareth, as Jack, who is your representative. As I sit here, I can't tell you. Certainly not in the national, you know, and provincial.
If you look into communities and you see that there are people who already take responsibility, you know, there are old ladies who look after everyone's kids in a township, for example, while the parents are working, or the single parent is working, or the whole family is trying to scratch together a living. There's some old lady who's looking after everyone's kids. Now, that lady already is taking responsibility.
Yes, she has.
We should be able to nominate her and find someone to do that work for her.
Right.
And she can go and represent the community, which she frankly already does, and she knows them better than anyone else. So I think one of the good things that's happened in the last while is that we have been able to have independent candidates come to the fore. There are a few of them, unfortunately not too many, but that's changing.
Gareth, my bias, still is we need constituency based, elections.
Right. I think we agree.
Yep.
In 1994, coming from a dark past, we wanted as much a representation as possible. So Jack, with his 1%, can get into parliament because we felt that was important to be heard. So we had a representation without accountability
Right.
as citizens. Now, after 30 years, isn't it time for us to revisit this issue?
Yep.
Isn't it time for us to actually have a more accountable government, accountable to the citizen? Wouldn't this invigorate, what I call public engagement, community engagement, citizens claiming their agencies? Whereas it is now correctly, the people who are in charge are the political bosses, and we need to, as I say, there's.
Oh, they like not being accountable.
They
It suits them down to the ground. We've seen them all flourishing in this. I just want to go to one or two comments here because people are saying, Maki Umalo says, we really need to have dialogue like this. So appreciating what you're bringing to the show this morning. Then Sanele says, spot on, Jack. The mentally shifting aspect is the most challenging part of this solution.
Yep.
I think that's important too. Our politicians have to be able to count, and then in order to be accountable, they must be able to show they can count. They must vote, says Sanele. I'm willing to read the ballot paper for all of them and advise who they should vote for. Anything but the ANC, says Sanele, for free. Virus says the type of person who's too lazy to register to vote are the kind of people who would have voted EFF anyway. Or ANC, he says. So I don't know about that. But Homotso says there should be consequences for people who don't go and vote. Well, I mean, in some countries there are.
Yeah.
In some countries you are forced to vote by law. Australia, I think, is one of those countries. I don't know if it would make a difference because people would be like, please, the police.
Yeah,
I
don't think
like we don't care in this case. Listen, in some ways, and when I'm really feeling very sarcastic and I'm trying to be less serious about the future that I want for this country, I go, well, it's nice that we are a little anarchic, that it is kind of bizarre. This country, no one really follows the rules, right? And I wouldn't want necessarily to have a party that's hugely rules-based. I don't want to live in an Australia where they can fine you or put you in jail if you don't vote or if you put out your rubbish bin too early or too late. I don't want that kind of country because part of what makes South Africa charming to me is like we're a little laissez-faire on some of the things.
Rough around the edges somewhere.
Yeah.
In fact, it's my counter to those who actually are agitating for a strong man,
Yes.
personality, a Kagame, a Putin, those type of people. That Liu Yongquan, in Singapore,
Yes.
Deng Xiaoping,
Mm-hmm.
that were not those type of people. We don't come from a Confucian ethic where you have to be obeisant, harmonious. We're rebellious people, free-spirited people.
I think that's beautiful.
That's who we are, And also, just to go on, if I may, Gareth.
Sure.
Some of these things like, forced, compulsory voting and all of those kind of things. If someone suggested to me, we're having a chat, national service, that to improve the esprit de corps, youth participation, everything. And I worried about that. And in fact, I'm maybe posing this question to you, that a government and a state that has lost so much legitimacy in the eyes of our people, as reflected by voter, participation. I'm talking about the eligible, voters. A government that is beset with the kind of corruption that was revealed by the Zondo Commission, a minister being charged for all kinds of things. Can a government like that, have the trust of the citizenry, to force them to serve for a year or for two? Because I think that's part of that social contract that I believe, that social contract, and I'm using that word, advisedly. I'm going back beyond social pacts, which has become a buzzword. A social contract between a citizen and the state. But you see in other countries,
Mm.
You know, like in Switzerland. You know, those people there love volunteering. They love that country. It's a small country, you know, because that kind of gives back to them.
Yeah.
Things that they need.
And there's trust.
Mm.
There's trust,
Mm.
you know, and that's what we need. You know, we need that social contract. And I think at this point, we can only get it through some conversation,
Mm.
a conclave.
Yeah,
I think we're
agree
getting
with
warmer
you.
on all of this. I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting to a conclusion that you reach in the book. And I do want to thank you. Before we go, I mean, Jack, you had one more thing to say. I do also want to refer to one or two of these comments, but
Sure.
you have the floor.
Yeah, that social contract that you're talking about. If I were to answer your question, the answer would be no. I don't think the current government, in its infinite wisdom, is not going to inspire a large group of people to step up and be a part of the service of this country, primarily because we've become so cynical through their teaching, I might add, that we cannot give up our time and lives in service for that government, knowing very well that the fruits of our labor will be divvied up amongst them first, and then we'll get a slice or something at the bottom of it.
Yeah, it would be like letting your child be looked after by a child molester.
Seriously, if after these elections, whichever party or coalition leads the country, and they tell us that young people need to serve in the military for a year or two, I'd be the first one to tell them, no, don't do it.
Yeah, I just don't think we're at that point. You know, there is no trust between the citizen and the state. We need to fix those things first. And again, I'm going back to a grand conclave.
Yep.
To look into these very issues: patriotism, you know, crime, voting. What is the disincentive? Why are people not voting? Is the PR system still applicable? Don't we need more accountable government? And why is our unemployment so persistent? I mean, it's defied everybody. You know, and as I say, when you've got unemployment of over 40% and voter participation of 30%, now there's a lethal cocktail for a social explosion. We've seen this thing before. Let us make sure it doesn't happen again.
Very true.
Well, I think that if there's anything to be taken from your comments this morning, and I would encourage people to read the book too, but I think you've made it very clear that this is what we need. We need to get people together, put them in a room, make them sort these problems out, because that's the only way we will save this country and take it forward. The Soul of a Nation is the book by Oyama Mabandla. It's great to have you here this morning. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. You kind of jokingly said, it was a throwaway, if I were president, I would do. And I mean, I can't help thinking there are a lot of people listening to you this morning thinking, if only this man was in politics, we would know who to vote for. But there are lots of options on the ballot paper. Oyama, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me here.
Sure.
It is hugely appreciated.
Sure.
Thanks to your listeners as well.
No
I
problem.
enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's
We
been
need
lots
more
of fun.
of this.
I love it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
so did everybody in the comments by the looks of things. Thank you, everybody, for joining in this morning. We will see you on Thursday at 6 a.m. Pumi Mashicho and I to take you through the burning platform and a bunch of other cool stuff. Stick around, The Real Network, and share, subscribe, like, all of that stuff. Also, check out Oyama's book. We'll see you on Thursday. Cheers.
Thank you. Why on Thursday?